Hey, a little announcement before we start. In the first week of July, so next month, I'm gonna be streaming on Twitch. The link is in the description, so come say hi, ask any questions you want. In terms of language, I'm gonna be speaking English when there are English questions and Russian when there are Russian questions. So don't be shy, ask anything you want in the chat. On stream, the link in the description, I will be working on add-on MLOs, add-on pets, free mode closing, weapons. We're gonna create a lot of revolutionary stuff for the servers. It's gonna be cool and exciting. So yeah, come ask your questions, come say hi, and see you in the chat. So yeah, as you may have guessed by now, today is an MLO tutorial. We're gonna learn how to create your own custom add-on interior, whether it's in vanilla GTA, FiveM or RageMP, from scratch. So firstly, I want to say that if you're super new to that, I will leave a link to few super noob friendly videos from Toby's tutorial, so you kind of more or less aware of the files we're going to be working on. But as I said, this is the video you need from learning to scratch, so of course I will be explaining all this stuff here as well as providing all the links needed. But don't be scared, as this video will also be helpful for experienced mappers, as I'm going to be showing a lot of tips and tricks and how I personally create MLOs the quickest and fastest and easiest way. So make sure to also follow the video if you consider yourself experienced or advanced mapper or modeler. By the way, we just released a huge add-on pet pack with 5 characters in our FiveM store. So if you're a server owner, if you just want to create your own server, make sure to check out our store, where we'll have a lot of cyberpunk pets, monsters, just Ghostface for like Halloween or something. We have a lot of MLOs, and we'll be adding a lot more later on. There will be also weapons here, so make sure to check this out. The link is in the description. First things first, make sure you have your OpenIV downloaded. I try to make it English. It doesn't make it English, just so follow the link in the description and just press this yellow thing here to download OpenIV. It will just ask you to navigate to your GTA5.exe path. So once you do that, you launch your OpenIV, and the first thing you do is you're setting up your custom path. So some people prefer doing that in mods folder, but I personally work within update DLC packs folder right here, because I like to keep everything in one place. If you want, it's a matter of preference, you can do everything in mods folder, but I'm just used to keeping all my stuff in DLC packs under update. So you go to update x64 DLC packs. Right here you create a folder. Don't forget to enter the edit mode. So you enter edit mode, and right here you create a folder called whatever, call your DLC whatever, but let's say we call it first interior, right? So then you navigate to your first interior DLC, and inside here you create an RPF archive, which is just an archive for GTA, and it must be called DLC, so dlc.rpf. So inside here you create a folder called x64, and inside here you create a folder called levels. Don't ask me why, this is just how the GTA hierarchy works. Just make sure to follow what I show you. Inside you create a folder called GTA5, and inside here you create another RPF archive called whatever. Let's call it first MLO, first MLO or whatever, right? So this is where we will be working. This is kind of our desktop, if you wish, a desktop for GTA. So it starts with dlc.rpf and it ends with rpf as well. So once you have your path established, the next step is downloading CodeWalker, and you can do so by navigating to my Discord channel inside tools and links category, and I have special English section here. Make sure to ask your questions right here, and here you have link to CodeWalker Discord server, so you follow that, and inside CodeWalker Discord there is a releases section, so make sure to download the latest version. It's dev 43 right now. For you it might be 44, 45, it doesn't matter, just download the latest one. Huge props to Dexifx for making CodeWalker possible, of course. Once you have your CodeWalker downloaded, make sure to open your folder and go to codewalker.exe and just start it, launch it. So it will take some time for it to load itself. After it's done loading, make sure the first thing you do is you open this little tab right here in the top right. Then you go right here and you click enable DLC and enable mods. Now what that does is it enables the latest version available for GTA, and we want to work with the latest version of the files. Otherwise, imagine you have edited the files that are no longer used by the game. So what you're going to do with those files? So in order to work with the latest version of the files, you're going to want to have enable DLC and mods all the time. Especially with our add-on DLC created, we have to make sure that CodeWalker reads that DLC, so we have to make that enabled. And if you want this to be saved every time you reopen CodeWalker, just go to options and press save settings right here. So in terms of CodeWalker basic hotkeys and controls, I'm gonna leave a link to Toby's tutorial. It's actually 37 minutes. I'm not sure why it's that long, because CodeWalker is really straightforward and easy to use. But if you want like super deep dive, watch this tutorial. It's really great. But for sure, I will still show you the basic stuff. But you know, WASD is moving, T for toolbar, because toolbar, right shift for going faster, C for cursor, so now you're kind of selecting stuff by their boundary box. Now the boundary box is something we really have to talk about for now. If you're a newbie, so boundary box is this green box we have around our object, and this is actually kinda the boundary of rendering is the right name, because render boundary, because your object, your geometry, so this is called like a model geometry, right? It must be inside that boundary box. So let's model like two situations. The first one being your, let's say, something like a trash bin, and your boundary box being smaller than your geometry, trash bin geometry. So in that situation, your model just will not be rendered because it's bigger than the render box. I mean, sounds obvious, right? So every single boundary box will be and must be bigger than the geometry, than the model itself. That's why any object you grab in CodeWalker, you grab them by the boundary box. It's white, then it becomes green when you select it. And right here you see every boundary box is bigger than the geometry itself, and this is a rule we will be following later on, so it was crucial to understand that. So of course there are super straightforward tools like moving with W. So there are 3 axes, of course, the red one being X, green one being Y, and Z, so height coordinate being blue, so everything is kind of standard. E for rotating. If you want to have a rotation step, you can go right here, rotation snapping. It's actually rotation steps, so like 1 degrees, you know, so for your own comfort, 5 degrees and shit like that. So in order to save stuff, we're gonna be using CodeWalker project. You can open that by hitting Ctrl N or just pressing right here. And this is called CodeWalker project window. So I'm not going to be explaining that right here because that requires knowing how to actually edit world props, ytyps within inteior. And this is exactly what's shown in the video. I left a link in the description. But we will be working with CodeWalker project within this tutorial, so don't be scared. You will get this as we move along the video. So the last piece of software we're gonna need here is 3ds Max, and it's an actual 3D software. Make sure to follow that link that I took from Toby's Discord actually. So Toby has a great Discord channel. You can make sure to join that little community here too. So this is a link to 2017 3ds Max, no key, so license you're gonna figure it out yourself, but let me just say it. It's super easy and straightforward to get a free student license, no matter if you're a student or not. I mean, of course I am one and I have a student license, but I'm just saying that you can figure out the key for yourself. But here's gonna be 1 month free license no matter what. And we're gonna need 2017 original GIMS EVO plugin for working with GTA. So once you download that zip folder, or RAR in that case, you're gonna have 2 folders right here. The folder called GIMS you drag and drop into your local folder. Make sure it's your local disk C, so where Windows is, most likely it's C, it can be D, wherever. Then go to users, make sure you're your own user, which is distros in my case. Then go to app data, local, and right here drop your GIMS. Your scripts folder goes into Mac, so you open your file location of Macs and you just drag and drop script right here. And this is the end of downloading tools. This is the end of introductory part, the end of introduction for newbies. From now on, it will be there will be more advanced stuff. This is like actual MLO creation starts from here. So raw theory has ended. Now we're actually making stuff. So for now, just remember all the steps. So this is like step 1. You open up your CodeWalker and you just find the place you're gonna be working on, where you're gonna be setting up your interior, your MLO. MLO stands for multiple level object. So MLO and interior are equal, synonyms if you wish. Just make sure to create it the way I show in the video. No menu, no interior, created from props, tables, shit like that. Make sure to create an actual MLO instance, and this is exactly what this video is about. So step 1, let's choose any place. So this is this little bull hat right here. It has a little entrance here, but inside there's no interior, so I figured like, oh, this would be a great place to start. So the first thing you do is you go to your toolbar, you enable your cursor by pressing C hotkey. Then you select your building by right-clicking it, of course. Then you select your moving tool and make sure you have your building selected. In this case, it was quite easy, but let's say I'm trying to select this building. You see, first I select some other stuff, so then I try to select it again. I select other shit again, so it may be few attempts for you, so it's maybe fly further away and try to select it again. So it may be harder for you than I show it in the video, especially if you're doing it for the first time. So we have our building selected, so we kind of figured out what we're going to be doing, or rather where we're going to be building stuff. And once we figure that out, I'm 100% certain I have selected the correct model. Go to top right, and right here you're going to be in the view by default. By the way, this is where you can switch your detail distance if you have like super weak PC. And here go to selection tab, and here of course what you have selected is displayed right here because it's selection tab, right? And right here we have our model's name. By the way, some people use CodeWalker RPF Explorer for working with GTA files, and it's kind of a better version of OpenIV. But since we're going to be working with open formats, there are no ways you can avoid working with OpenIV whatsoever. So for people wondering why I'm not using RPF Explorer, which is a great piece of software as well, I'm going to be using mostly OpenIV, but RPF Explorer is more advanced. It has more functions in it, so more features in it. So yeah, but for the purpose of this tutorial and for the simplicity, we're going to be using mostly OpenIV and CodeWalker. So you copy your model's name under selections, and you go to OpenIV or RPF Explorer, and you search for your model's name under your search bar, of course. And right here you will find your make sure it's YDR. So YDR being drawable. So Y is kind of GTA format. It will always be Y. D being drawable. So the second letter is kind of always tells you what this is. So in our case, it's drawable, and drawable stands for just a model, or just a geometry. And the geometry can be with embedded textures or with the textures somewhere else in a distant place. So in our case, let's just open our model, our YDR, and we see most of the textures here. So where you see anything like raw color, like black, orange, white, or even purple, it's where the textures are not present. So here mostly the textures are present. So in this case, some textures are part of the model. They are embedded into the model. So here we can click view embedded textures. We will see all the textures that are embedded to geometry. Part of them are here, and part of them are in some other YTD. So if you're working with any other place, in order to check which YTD, so YTD is texture dictionary, which is basically just a dictionary with textures. You go to your archetype right here, and you go to texture dictionary. You copy those letters right here, Firstly, let's create a folder on our desktop. Let's call it first MLO. And this is how I like managing files. I create a folder called initial, where I just export all the raw files, and then I create a folder called progress. And inside progress, I create several steps, and I highly recommend you doing that, especially if you're a beginner. Saving all your steps, making backups will be of great value at the distance, because you will get your multiple crashes and stuff like that. So firstly, select your model, being the YDR, our building. And before exporting working with the texture, export the geometry itself. So right click, export to open format, ODR. So YDR becomes ODR because it's open. Now go to your desktop where my thing is, and first MLO initial. So this is like the first version of the files. I exported there. And we have copied our ytd's name. Let's now enter that here. We have a lot of shit here, but make sure we filter it by ytd. And now we have our ytd here with all the textures. We export it to open formats as well. ytd becomes OTD. So as I told you, it's nothing hard really. It's just textures here in some distant other place. So if we go back to our building, we can actually display our textures right on that model right here. So let's select our building, and here under add texture, click that and go to our, what it's called, this, right? Yep, and we see all our textures displayed right here. So we made sure it's a right texture. Right texture dictionary. So the last part we want in CodeWalker for now is we have to clearly divide few separate stuff. So the first one being geometry of the visual geometry that we actually see with the textures assigned to them, as we see in game. And the second part being boundaries, which is a collision, which is something your pet bumps into when you work within your interior model, whatever. So in order to do that, right here in cursor, we switch to collision mode. So we had kind of our model mode. You can divide it like that in your brain for now, and then we have a collision mode. And here we can select our collisions. So you can edit collisions in CodeWalker, but I just not used to it. I don't like doing that actually. So collisions is basically just a layer of collisions upon real ground, real textures. In CodeWalker, I'm just not used to it. I like working with collisions in 3ds Max, but theoretically you could have just moved it right here and removed your collision. But in order for you to become more experienced in Max, and it also provides more opportunities, it's more flexible. We will edit collisions in 3ds Max and actual 3D software. So let's make sure you select the first polygon you see in your way. So how do I know that? How do I know that? Because I know I will be making an entrance here. So if I want my pet to go through here, I will have to make sure that there is no collision here, so my pet can get through that here. So I go to collision right here, and I select this by right-clicking this little box right here. It will most likely be purple most of the times. Then I just go to selection again, and I select everything after this poly, and it will give you a YBN file. And again, it's really straightforward because B standing for boundary. So Y is GTA format and B stands for boundary. So it's boundary object right here, and it's just static collisions here, you see. So this is how GTA divides it by actual huge portions of the map, chunks of the map. Somewhere here is our little building. So we'll be working with that in Max. Let's export it to open formats as well. So YBN becomes OBN. You export it to your initial. And also, once we move that, make sure you remove all the collision here. So let's say you deleted that. Oh, there's another collision here. It's gray. So make sure you copy that name as well. And you will always be working with that collision too, because it's HIAT. So this collision stands for bullets. If you open that, you see that only tricky part here are for bullets. So why does Rockstar do that? So make sure, let's imagine you have like kind of like a fence, right? Like so. Excuse me, my poor paint drawing. So and right here you have like your pillars or whatever. So your pet, he must bump into the object right here once you're super close to them. But your bullets, they must go through here, through here, through here, and through here. So they must go through everything, but not through here and not through here. So in order for especially if you have like cellular gates, you will have to divide your collision, and we will be working on that in our 3ds Max as well. So this is why GTA divides that. So if you don't remove HI collision, you will go through the object, but bullets will not go through the object. But if you have an RP server, of course, within the interior, you want it to be possible to shoot. So export that to open formats as well. Now in our initial folder right here, we have our model and inside your model file folder, it created an ODR and the file folder. And inside file folder, you have your DDS textures, which are a format for GTA and for a few other games used for texturing, DDS format. I will leave a link. You will need to have a plug-in for Photoshop and for Windows to work with them, to work with GTA format, and I will leave a link to downloading DDS format for Windows in the description. You will have to restart your PC after you download the software. It's 5 minutes of work, trust me. Or you can just use online converters from PNG to DDS if you're too lazy about it, I don't know. And inside here you will also have a mesh file created, and mesh is just a geometry. So what OBN files, they go without file folder, and this file folder is just textures. It's our YTD. So now we actually go into 3ds Max. So it was the first step. So every time you want to create an MLO, you divide it into like 4 or 5 steps. I'm going to be showing in your timestamps below, so make sure to check the timestamps. So this was the end of step 1, exporting everything you need from CodeWalker, taking the crucial information you need to work with later on. Now the second step would be opening your 3ds Max. If you're super noob, just make sure you watch like at least one tutorial on 3ds Max, like navigation tutorial, and after that launch your 3ds Max right here. For me, 2017 version. It is a version with the most stable GIMS plugin, and you can use older versions of Max like 2022, and there's another GIMS version for that Max right here by Kirill Komarov. So you can download on tools and links this version as well. But for 2017 Max, link in my tools and links, you're gonna need 2017 GIMS by Doomer, 3 Doomer. Now, by the way, in CodeWalker, once we selected all the collision, make sure you removed all the collision here, and make sure you don't have any collision left. So only model right here left, no collision. So we're done with CodeWalker. We close your CodeWalker, and now you are inside your 3ds Max. Right here we have 4 windows, 3 of them being 2D and 1 of them being 3D, which is perspective, 3-dimensional. So you select your perspective and hold Alt W, and now, or just press it, and now you're inside your 3D view. And right here, first things first, make sure you go to your utilities right here and you launch your GIMS. If you don't have your GIMS EVO right here because you haven't downloaded it, and under your timestamps in this video, I have shown you where to download and how to set up your GIMS EVO plugin for 3ds Max. So once you open your GIMS, this is a crucial plugin. You cannot work with GTA and 3ds Max without GIMS EVO. So you click import, obviously, because we want to import stuff. You go to your path and in folder called initial with all our open formats files. So firstly, let's just open our model. We're not working with collisions just yet. Make sure to open your ODR, which was YDR earlier, which is our model. Now it asks you where are all the textures at, but we have exported our YTD in the same destination where our model is, so I just kind of select the same destination. So it takes a little time to import. Just make sure not to click anywhere, not to close your 3ds Max. I mean, by pressing here, you can just leave your PCB or just go to your Opera, Google, whatever. Just make sure it does its job. Just don't interrupt it. Don't click anywhere. If it doesn't respond, it will. So now you have a little mistake, a little error here, but it just kind of says us that, well, there are some textures, like here you see it's purple, that have not been imported here. Well, it just doesn't matter because Rockstar sometimes divides the textures between separate YGDs like 5 or 3, especially with like roads and stuff. So ignore that mistake, ignore that error. Just hit back, go back, just hit that little button, and right here we have our MLO. So right here you see we have our transparency enabled, so it's not comfortable like I see my stairs when I want to work with the wall. So make sure the first thing you do, you go to your standard materials, enable transparency, uncheck it. And now I have my transparency off. Now it's good, right? We have our model right here in our max, our exterior model. The next thing you do is seeing how your exterior is positioned. So in 3ds Max, if you want to select like a vertices, so press F4, and we see our division of geometry right here. It's triangulated. Every polygon turns into triangle because with 2 dots, the vertices, you can only make a line, but with 3 dots, 3 vertices, you make a triangle. And triangle is the most optimized shape you can get with any engine. So that's why most engines use triangles, and the process called triangulation will always convert your polygons, which have 4 vertices, into triangles. That's why everything is triangulated right here, and it will always be. So right here, go to your second tab. It's called the modifier list, modifier tab, and you select your object. You go to editable mesh, and right here, you go to your vertices. You have several selection modes right here in the selection. You go to your vertices, let's say, and I go right here, and let's say I want to move that vertice right here. And if I try to do that, you see my so those arrows, they called pivot point. And if I try to move stuff, it's not comfortable for me because it's kind of not straight, if you wish. So it's not moving in the direction I want. And it will be even harder to work with the exterior and with interior later on. So the first thing you do, make sure you position your exterior correctly in max. So I see that the area I want to be working on is kind of rotated a little. So you see on your grid, your interior is kind of more to the right. It's not straight. So I see that right here, I want to slightly rotate it, and this is how I always create my interiors. I slightly rotate my exterior until it suits my needs. So make sure you have your angle snap enabled, and this is angle snap, the same as we had in CodeWalker. The hotkey is A, so you have that enabled. Right click and you can edit the angle step. For me it's 5 degrees, so let's say I have it disabled. I rotate it, I have decimals, it's not precise, and once I have it enabled, I can just rotate it until I think it's straight for me. So let's say right here it's not cool. I see it's well, yeah, but now I see it's better because this place, I want to worry about that place. Now it looks right at me, you see, and it's just 5 degrees. Sometimes you will have your exterior rotated like so, and you will have to rotate it like 30 degrees. But make sure when you export, rotate it back, because if you rotate it right here and export, it will be rotated in game as well. So we rotated 5 degrees, and we just remember that, memorize that, because when we export, we will rotate it back. So press F4, go to your editable mesh, and now right here, if we try to select a vertex, you see it's kind of straight now. It's not like this, like it was. So now, of course, we want to delete these little doors right here. They're not actual doors, not functioning doors. They are just raw geometry, part of this whole exterior. So we want to remove them. They are of no use to us. So I just left click with my control button, hold it. If you press F2, you have your red highlighting disappear. So make sure you have it enabled. Right here, let's remove all of that as well. I'm not gonna need that. So I must select by holding left click, right, like so. I will leave that here, leave that be, that little thing. Now I will show you the easiest the fastest and the best way to create your interior from here. So the easiest and the most precise way to create your interior is to start building it from exterior. So you go to your editable mesh tab and you go to your edge mode. Editable mesh is basically kind of entering your editing mode. You go to your edge mode, so now you can select your segments right here, those white lines. You select your very entrance of the exterior, so right here I see it's this edge. Then I hold shift and I drag it. Right here I see that I have not selected everything, so I hold control and select this one as well by left clicking. So I hold shift, I go right here, I hold shift again, and now I kind of start creating my room right here. Right here, if you, make sure it's not interfering with vertices, so right here you can just move that part right here. Make sure it doesn't interfere and it doesn't touch any of exterior object. If it does touch exterior, you will have troubles in the game. So right here you just see kind of poor Rockstar optimization, because we can actually just delete that and make the game more optimized. But Rockstar actually did a great job, but sometimes they're just lazy in places like that. So right here, let's say we prolong our room here, and now we shift where we want to add geometry. We hold shift and press it right here, but make sure not to divide your geometry like so, like every step of the way. You only divide it where you need it to. Right here I don't need my vertices to go all the way along, so I kind of lower it right here, until it's super close to that vertice. Then I select both of them. I go to weld tool, you know what weld word means, and I just press select. And now you see it just became one vertice. So two vertices become one vertice, good for optimization. Super straightforward, easy logic. Now you just drag it right here. Let's create our very first room. It's gonna be a box, super simple. And make sure to have your interior correspond with like both sides of your entrance, or it will not be precise. So let's say our wall goes somewhere here, and this is where we have another room maybe. So let's say it goes right here. This is our hallway or something, and here we go and enter some other room. I know it doesn't look pretty, but I mean, for the purpose of this tutorial, it's fine. Also, make sure you know like the navigation, so the mouse 3, Alt plus mouse 3 to rotate, so basic navigation stuff, make sure you know it before we start editing. Now we have made our walls. Let's say this is our final room right here. Now we can make it a little more complex. Right here, let's say, it doesn't look too straight, but I just don't want to. You can make this straight, like convert it to editable poly right here. So it's for advanced mappers. If you don't know shit what I'm doing, just ignore that. And you can like make it planar for y-axis, make it planar for y-axis here to make it straight. Same goes for this. So yeah, if you like want it to be super precise. So right here again, I don't need my vertice right here, so I lower it down, I weld it. There's a weld button right here. Now I just drag it until here with my snapping tool. And GDS Max cam being an ass as always. Let me switch to another view right here. Now you select your vertices, make sure somewhere you end your interior, right? You have your boundaries, and you weld where you have your boundaries. Now we have our walls, right? And they're super precise. It starts with an entrance, and now we have to make our floor and the ceiling. So, in order, the easiest way to make your floor is to just go to your edges and select different edges until you just hit bridge. And it creates your floor like so. You see, super easy. You just select several of the bottom part of the bottom edges, and you hit bridge. So basically what it does is just dragging your dragging like so with shift, but kind of with one button. All right, and right here we select even it's a little triangles, a little under angle here, you select it, still it's possible to bridge. Here it's a little bit harder, but still let's just try making it like so. All right, it's good enough. Now let's select this. It doesn't bridge, sometimes that happens. Let's make sure we have our vertices welded here. It doesn't bridge when they're not looking in the same direction. So the easiest way to make now that I think about it, it will be easier to delete that whole polygon and make sure we bridge bigger parts like this. Then just make sure we make our floor at the entrance, bridge it right here, and then just bridge like, let's say this. And yep, we have our floor established right here. We have problems with our geometry here, but we will fix that like so. Let's say so just double click underground like here, and you will select your vanilla geometry. And as I said, it is supposed not to interfere with your interior, so make sure you move it out of your interior. Make sure you're moving something outside of actual stuff that player sees. So I know that this will never be seen by player. I can basically just delete all of that just randomly stands in my way. Where was I? So yeah, this is just basically in my way, this little floor, so I just move it. Make sure there are no holes like this, because how it looks in 3ds Max, this is exactly how we'll make it look in game. So now once we have established our geometry, so let's look underground. Let's actually make it flat color right here. It's default shading, it's hard to see. Now make it flat color. Now we see everything. And we have our little box right here. We will divide it into separate rooms. So this would be room number 1. And this would be room number 2. We can make a little doorway here if you wanted to, but honestly, it just doesn't matter. So make sure to establish your doorway somewhere. It doesn't matter, we will just create several rooms. So the next step would be separating your, so which is kind of third step, I would say, texturing. Firstly, separate your model. You can do so by hitting element mode. So well, basic understanding of it is like polygons is separate polygons, and element is a separate model itself. So you hit it, make sure you select it on your interior, and you just hit detach. Now we have created an interior that is super precise with our entrance. We can also, before we detach, by the way, make sure to enable your Scene Explorer right here to have all your stuff shown. If you don't have your Scene Explorer, you can open it right here, toggle Scene Explorer. Let's also make our ceiling first, right? 3ds Max camera being an ass. Oh no, it's kind of precise right here. We can detach it. Let's detach our interior. And now, why do we have several objects detached? What is that? 0 polygons, don't mind that. And right here, let's just hide our exterior geometry. So if I press right here, it doesn't hide because this is just a model, a green square right here. This is just a hierarchy, GIMS model. It doesn't hide anything. The actual geometry is right here with high at the end. You hide it. And right here you have your interior. Make sure not to move it anywhere. So there are several ways to create your ceiling. The first one, going to borders mode and just press cap. As you see, it doesn't always work right, because here it kind of thinks that this should be kept as well. So in our case, it's a bad choice. You can also just kind of breach all your things from again, as we did with the floor. But the easiest way would be actually selecting your floor like so. So make sure you have selected all of your floor right here. And then just hold Shift, or in older version of Max it's Control Shift. Now make sure your snaps are enabled right here. Hotkey S, clone to element, yep, okay, and you have it under correct height right here. Now what you notice is some polygons are bright and some are darker, so make sure you have your bright, and it actually matters. It's the direction of which your polygons is looking at, kind of like the face of your interior, and the face should be inwards because you want your ceiling to be seen from inside. So if it's dark, you will not see it in game. So make sure you click the flip button to flip the normal direction. There are normals, and in order to flip them, you click it right here. So this stuff I don't care about, those little triangles, I just delete them. And I make sure it's super straight here. Then right here, I can go to snaps mode, make sure it's vertex enabled for you. And let's say you have like some vertices being with different height, right? So my advice here is selecting your upper part and click make planar on Z. So now they're all on the same coordinate. The next step would be welding all the vertices. Go to vertices mode, hit Ctrl A. Editable Poly is kind of a newer, better version of Editable Mesh. It just provides better options. Go to weld and make sure you have it at 001. Hit OK. Now all our vertices are welded, and now let's set up our materials. So go to your material editor, hotkey M, and if you have another version of material editor like this planar one, it's kind of not noob friendly, so make sure you're working with this one. Just left click, hold left click and enable this one. Go to standard and enable multi-sub object, discard all material. Now what have I just selected is a dictionary of materials basically, and now you have to decide how many textures you want to be using. So in my case, let's say I want to use one texture for the ceiling, one texture for the floor, and another texture for the walls. So let's establish 3 materials. Under set number, click 3, make sure it's 3, and let's just, I don't know, let's just imagine that material first would be brick, material second would be the ceiling, which would be like concrete, like, alright, and the third one would be marble floor or whatever, right? It's at your own taste how you want your materials to be called. And B, what we have to, it's just a name, it doesn't matter. What matters is a unique ID. But before we go into IDs, under your submaterial, make sure you make it GIMS material right here, because GTA can only work with GIMS material. Make sure you have your show shaded material in viewport enabled, this little button right here. Then go to parent to go back to this view, hit none, GIMS 5 material, show shaded material in viewport enabled, go to parent hierarchy. You can just copy and paste it actually, and you will have this enabled because it just pasted it. Now those IDs is what we have to pay attention to, because now what you have to have in mind is that each polygon has its own material ID, unique material ID. In your head, you can kind of think of material as textures for now. So material ID almost equals texture ID. So let's say the floor right here, it says 7. But for us, it says that the floor would be 3. So what you do is you select your floor right here, all of your floor, and make sure it's the ID you have chosen. So it's 3 or 2 or 1. just make sure you have decided that it will be one of the IDs. So I just randomly thought that, like, all right, my 3 would be my floor, and this is where I will be assigning my floor textures to. So now make sure under material IDs your floor is ID 3. All right, now our walls, make sure to select all of your walls like so. It's the easiest way, all of your walls. And make sure under our material editor, our brick walls, it's ID 1. So right here under 7, make it 1. All right. Now our ceiling. Our ceiling, of course, is ID 2. Make sure it's set ID 2. And now if you go to flat color, you will see that it's kinda fucked because it still has old materials from our exterior. So you have to replace this ID with your material. So with your material selected and with your geometry selected, press assign material to what you have selected. Now everything becomes purple, but that's alright. We just have not assigned any textures yet. So the next part is we have just worked in Max material editor. Now go to GIMS material editor, and here you have all of your 3 materials that we have just established right here. So let's choose some textures somewhere. Right here in my Discord channel, I have a lot of converged GTA ready textures. Make sure they are a power of 2, so all of your textures must be one of those resolution, so power of 2. And all of these textures I have prepared for you right here, pack of textures. They are all GTA ready. DD is our DDS, power of 2, DDS format. So you download them, and there are a lot of textures right here. So I want my walls to be brick, I want my floor to be marble, and my ceiling to be concrete. So I take those 3 folders from my zip and I drag and drop them right here. So you download a collection of textures from my Discord channel under tools and links, and right here under brick, let's choose any textures we want. So it's going to be diffuse texture, so a raw color. Let's say this is one I want. Control C, Control V. This is one I'm going to be using for the walls. Now we go to, let's say, converted concrete, which would be our ceiling. Let's select something usual like this, something very ordinary. And for our floor, marble, I know it doesn't look good. I mean, my contrast is fucked, but let's say I want to use this texture for the purpose of this tutorial right here. So I have all my textures needed, my DDS, albedo, diffuse, textures, raw color. I go to brick wall, I hit my material, I go to my diffuse texture, hit empty, and then I go to my MLO tutorial folder, first MLO. And for my brick, of course, I select brick. You have your textures here displayed in preview, and this would be my brick, open. And here I have it a little not wrapped, but we'll work on that later, but it's assigned. Now you go to your ceiling, it's the same process, and you select your ceiling, which is concrete. Now if you want your textures to be embedded inside your geometry, not a part of YTD, you hit embed. Now for the purpose of this tutorial, let's click hit embed. So our textures are embedded to our geometry. And our third material would be the floor, which would be marble. Embed that as well. So if you're using a lot of textures rapidly within different interiors, you want to be using YTD texture dictionary. If you're using unique textures for one interior only, it's actually more optimized to embed them. It kind of depends. So for the purpose of this tutorial, I will embed everything so you understand it better. If you're an advanced mapper and you want to use texture maps, which are normal map, bump map, specular map, make sure to change your shader to normal bump and normal spec. And right here you can assign your bump texture, specular texture, bumpiness being your intensity of bump texture, how strong your bump texture you want to be. Bump texture is actually normal map in GTA, it's not actual bump texture. And the specular intensity is the intensity, like the strength of your specular map. And Fresnel fall off, you can just read it in the internet, it's unique among all the games. But for us, let's keep it simple for the beginners, let's make it default, just raw color texture. If you want a shaded tutorial, let me know in the description, or just ask in my Twitch channel when I stream. Ask anything in the chat. So now let's deal with the textures. Let's actually unwrap them, because right here, let's say I don't want to select all my walls like that. I can select them by material, because we have divided our polygons by materials. So I select any polygon and I just click select ID1, and now it selected every polygon that has my material. But right here, you see I have missed one wall, but it's alright. I just selected polygon and click it to be, and from 2 I make it 1. Done. So super easy. I select ID1, I click F2 to make the redness go away, and then I go to my modifier list and hit UV map. Now I just hit box, because it's not planar, so you see that yellow thing, it makes it 2D planar, but with interiors you're almost always working with 3D. So box is not a plane, so 3D is not a plane, 3D is a box, so you make sure it's box projection, like here, projection. And right here you can just wrap it on your own taste by hitting and dragging those little arrows right here, or you can just click real world map size. Sometimes it looks good, it just makes all of those values 1. So right here it looks good for me. You can also click like fit right here, and then click and then select, but you can watch tutorial on ymap on the internet, but most of the time you'll be good with real world map size. Now after you establish your texture, just right click right here and select collapse all, kind of like saving your progress. And now you select your ceiling polygons. As I said, ceiling polygons, F2, UV map. It's actually kind of good, nice wrap right here. Ceiling would be 2D, so we find this planar projection. So let's kind of slightly move it at our own taste, somewhere here. Make sure the textures are seamless. Collapse it for our floor. Let's select all of our floor. UV map. I don't like it. Let's make it real world map size. If you have it rotated like so, you see it's kind of rotated and it goes on your left. Go to your gizmo and rotate it manually like so, so it's more straight. Let's make it angle snap 1, and I slightly rotate it like so. Now it's more straight. Let's say I like it. Let's say it looks good. It doesn't, obviously. But make sure you do better jobs than me. Now our texturing is done. It's actually done. Now this is the end of this third, like this step 3, making our texture. So we made our geometry, our model, our interior, and we made it super precise. The step number 3 was texturing and working with shaders, with materials. The step number 4 would be creating an actual collision, which is easy, actually easier than creating your texture. So this would be fast and straightforward step. Let me show that one for you right here a little quick. So important thing to understand is your collision. Of course it doesn't need any textures, because the collision is invisible part. Collision is invisible. Your visual part, visible part, is your geometry right here, your model's geometry. So in order for make our collision without the textures, just select your interior, make sure you don't move it in any way, so it's still in the right place from in my exterior. Select your interior, Control V, kind of paste, and make sure it's copied, don't make it instance. And let's just call it, I know, collision. Now there are 2 objects on top of each other, for those who don't understand. Alright, now hide your model and only have your collision left. And right here, let's create another material. another multi-sub object material for our collision. Collision should have its own material. Now, for the purpose of this tutorial, let's make it 3 materials too. The first one will be RoomID 1. The second one will be RoomID 2. I will explain what all of that in a second. And the third one would be, I don't know, ceiling. So all of them are kind of concrete. So right here under group and material, you select what your materials actually are. So if you're working on a metal, on a concrete, on a sand, you have to make it so. Right here, make sure you have it. If it's a sand, make sure it's loose terrain sand. If it's a metal, solid small. So when you shoot at it, there will be sparks of metal or a paper or whatever. So make sure your material suits your actual visual part. So for my floor, it would be hard terrain. I think there is marble here somewhere. Yeah, marble. Select it's marble, and it will be RoomID 1. So this one is crucial. Make sure you set up your RoomID for your collision. It's actually only for the floor, for your floor's collision. So right here, make sure this is our floor ID 1. So RoomID is how you divide your rooms. GTA strongly divides their rooms into physical rooms and how you divide it into rooms. So you can have this all into 1 room or into 2 rooms. We will make it into 2 rooms. So this one, let's make it ID 1. Kind of like a hallway if you wish. Or even this one. Yeah, let's make yeah, let's just prolong our room a little here and make sure that this is RoomID 1. Set ID 1. This one would be ID 2 because it's RoomID 2. And make sure you select everything, hit Control I, and you will select everything that's unselected. And everything else would be just ID 3, which is just, I don't know, hard terrain, bricks, whatever. You go to your RoomID 2, GIMS material, you make sure it's RoomID 2, and it would be marble as well. Our RoomID 3, not RoomID 3, but materials 3. It doesn't need RoomID, only the floor needs RoomID, and we have divided our floor into RoomIDs by now already. So the last part left would be like making it brick or concrete, the third material, whatever you have under your own materials. And now just hit assign. Now right here we have our ceiling, and right here we have all of our IDs. By the way, this should be RoomID 1. So select your RoomID 1, make sure it's all of your RoomIDs. So this should be 2, actually 3. Yep. Now this would be your RoomID 2, and this is exactly how we have divided that here. And we will need that later on, or otherwise your interior just will not display in game, because this is how the game understands when you switch between rooms, from room 0, which being the outside world, to room 1 being your own room. So now we have created and established our collision, divided it into RoomIDs. This is what we have now. Our textureless collision, it should be like that, and our visual part. Now would it be the fourth step, right? The fourth step would be creating actual hierarchy for our models. If you take a look at vanilla hierarchy, we see that it GIMS model on the top, and it's actually, if you unhit it, it's a little square right here, so it's just a hierarchy, a dummy. And inside you have an actual geometry, and this is exactly how we have to do with our model as well. So before we do that, clone your interior, Control V, copy, and hide it. And call it a reference. All right, so now we have 2 interiors. One is being reference, one is being actual interior, and another one being collision. Control Z to remove your changes. Oh, by the way, we have to move our, so this was our collision, and we have moved our visual part along with the collision, right? Yep. Now, creating proper hierarchy. How do we do that? So go to GIMS, create object, models, model, spawn it in the scene by left clicking. Now go back, all the way back. It was for the visual part, for the model itself. Grab your model. Now let's call it like first interior. Copy that name and rename your GIMS model, the highest hierarchy, to the same name. And drag your interior, so your actual geometry, into your GIMS hierarchy, so it looks like so. You can also name it high at the end to make it simpler in your Scene Explorer. So high being your actual geometry, like Rockstar has, and this being a dummy, a GIMS model hierarchy. And now let's create a hierarchy for our collision. Go to create object, collisions, composite, and left click in the scene. Now we have our high hierarchy for our collision, and here let's call it the first interior, but COL at the end. And now I know for some reason some people are worried about people calling their collision COL at the end, but this is literally collision. So no matter what people tell you, it is alright to call your collision collision. So no matter what people tell you, it's literally collision. So for the purpose of this tutorial and making things simple in Scene Explorer, in the files, I will make it COL at the end, and our collision, drag and drop it into your collision, into your COL. So by collision I mean this one, textureless, with RoomIDs. So right here we have our two hierarchies done. So right now in our scene we have our exterior hierarchy with model inside, interior hierarchy with geometry model inside, and collision geometry inside, and one model being our reference. We will need it later on. So the last part here would be enabling and assigning modifiers, because if we select vanilla geometry, it has, it doesn't have any more, but it had a game mesh modifier here, and it's a special Rockstar GIMS modifier that you just have to assign. How do we assign that? You go to create object, models, game mesh modifier with your model selected. Now hide it back, select your interior, convert it to editable mesh before you export, and convert it to game mesh as well. Not just not convert it, but assign this orange box. And this orange box is a boundary box. This is why this modifier is needed. Boundary box, the green box I showed you earlier in CodeWalker, this is where it takes its values from. Alright? That's why we need this modifier. But the collision, it doesn't need boundary box, you don't see it. So convert it to editable mesh, it has its own unique modifier. Now go all the way back to create object, collisions, mesh modifier. So for your visual part, you have your game mesh modifier, but for collision you have your mesh modifier. And here it's crucial to set up your collision. Under PVH, just make it 002, don't ask me why. For now, just memorize stuff, and then the understanding will come to you a bit later. Now, as for the flags, map animal will make it physical for animal. Cover will make it possible to hit Q and you will cover under walls right here for your player, for your pet. Map dynamic will just make it work for your pet. Without map dynamic, the collision doesn't work. Vehicle will make it work for vehicles, and weapon for weapon. Of course, if you don't set up this flag, the bullets will go through your collision. And now we have our collision ready, or our hierarchies done. And this is the end of collision and hierarchy parts. Now the final part in Max, I would say the most important one. It's something very few people know how to do and very few people actually understand. We will take the coordinates inside 3ds Max to spawn our interior precisely in CodeWalker, so we don't have to manually move it. We will spawn it precisely at the coordinates of the interior. How do we do that? So this is where we need our reference. So hide everything you have in your scene for now, unhide your reference, and unhide your exterior. So if you remember, by the way, launch your CodeWalker now so it loads. If you remember, we have rotated it 5 degrees. Let's rotate it back 5 degrees, like so. Make sure it's 5 degrees. And rotate your interior 5 degrees as well, like so. Oh. Now, the crucial part. We have to make sure that our exterior is in the GTA coordinates in Max. How do we do that? Firstly, in the world coordinates. Firstly, make sure you go to customize units setup. Make sure it's generic units international. This is the system that coordinate system that GTA uses. Make sure it's not metric, not centimeters, meters, whatever. It's generic units international. Hit OK. Go to CodeWalker. Now go to your exterior right here. Select your exterior. And now we take its world coordinates under position right here. So go to your X value, copy it, select your exterior. And if we were to move it right now, if we were to move it right now with your move tool, I had rotation tool, with your move tool, we were to move it without our interior, like so. But we want to move it with our interior to take our interior's coordinates later on. So go to your exterior, attach your interior to your exterior, like so. Hit OK. Now, the coordinates we just took, Control V, make sure there is a dot here, not comma, enter. Now do the same with Y, enter. The same with Z, height coordinate. Now, where the hell do I look for my model? Just select it right here in the scene explorer and press Z on your keyboard. It's kind of zoom. It teleports you to your exterior. And now it's exactly in the world coordinates of GTA. So you see we're kind of high. And this is 0, 0, 0 coordinates right here. Well, this is exactly where it's found in CodeWalker. Because right here it's 0, 0, 0 coordinates. Right here, and you see it's high up there, uphill. So it's exactly on GTA coordinates right now. And in order to get our interior coordinates, what do? We go to editable mesh. Select our interior as element, our whole interior. We detach it. And once we detach it, we see that our interior is not, so this is, so the point of interest called pivot point is where we're taking our coordinates from. So if we rotate around this point of interest called pivot point. If we move around this point of interest, and the coordinates are point of interest. But this is not where we want our interior to be. This point of interest, pivot point. We want it to be right here. So in order to fix your point of interest, your pivot point, you go to your third tab, hit effect pivot only with your interior selected, center to object, and now it centers to your interior. Now you leave effect pivot only mode, and this is correct world, exact, precise, and great coordinate of your interior in the game. So you open like your notepad or whatever, you open it. And how I do that, how I do this, I just copy the coordinates from max, like so, the first one being the x, comma, and make sure it's this format with commas. It will be easier in CodeWalker. Y coordinate, comma, and Z coordinate, comma. Nice. Control S, we save it, we close it. We will need it later on in CodeWalker. And this was the end of navigation part. All right, it was crucial to take your interior coordinates from here. Now you can just leave it or delete it, it doesn't matter. Just select your exterior and make sure you rotate it at 0, 0, 0 coordinates by right clicking this thing. It's 0, 0, 0. Now unhide your collision. Sorry for that. Rotate it 5 degrees as well. So you see it's like it was. The same goes for the model. Great. Now before you export, so this is like the beginning of the final 3ds Max part, being the export part. So any vanilla model, when you import it, you see it's on 0, 0, 0 coordinate in Max, even though in CodeWalker we have just established its real coordinates, world coordinates. So which lesson do we have to take from that? So every model we export, we have to make it 0, 0, 0 coordinates before we export. Even though its world coordinates are somewhere else, but we already written down its world coordinates. So the last thing we need before export is making sure that our interior is 0, 0, 0 coordinates. But if we make it 0, 0, it's already 0, 0, even though it's right here, right? It's not 0, 0, 0 coordinates. Because again, the coordinates is pivot point of interest. So make sure you go to Effect Pivot, the third tab, Effect Pivot Only, Center to Object, leave Effect Pivot Only mode. Now it's real coordinates here. Make sure you right click it to make 0, 0, 0. Same goes for your interior. Effect Pivot Only, Center to Object, Effect Pivot Only mode, 0, 0, 0. And make sure you don't rotate it anywhere from here. Some people say also rotate it until it's super straight. In my case, you don't need it because we have already established the angle, the 5-degree angle. We have already took the coordinates and we have made it 0, 0, 0 coordinate right here. We established our hierarchy. All the modifiers are done. Now make sure you save your scene because it can crash. Control S, save it as like first MLO as max scene. Make sure to always have your backups, guys. Just trust me, it will crash a lot of times. Now close your CodeWalker and open your GIMS, hit export and go to your progress. This would be our step number 1, attempt 1, version of the files number 1. Now it kind of asks us if our hierarchy is correct, which files you want to export. So we want to export all the files. Now keep track of your hierarchy. So model being game mesh, model game mesh, composite being collision mesh. Alright, now after you made sure it's correct, all the hierarchy is done, texturing is done, RoomID is done, you took your coordinates and all the hierarchy is correct with correct modifiers. If you have editable mesh here, then you did not assign game mesh or mesh modifiers. Make sure to assign them. Then after you make sure everything is right, just hit continue and give it its time to export. Don't click anywhere. If it doesn't respond, just give it time to export. Don't click anywhere. Now let's continue once it's done exporting. Before we continue, Patreon, PayPal, and YouTube left me with no means of monetization, so I want to thank today's sponsor, being Zap Hosting, a hosting I've been personally using. So they have like different locations here. You can ping check, change between slots, additional memory, and price calculator right here on your right. You can boost your CPU right here and many more other options. So you can use that for FiveM if you want to be hosting your FiveM server, or if you just want to create your VPS server, dedicated server, not only for FiveM. I suggest you to use Zap Hosting. The promo code in the top right for 20% off, and you would help me a lot if you would use my promo code and use Zap Hosting. I really do recommend them. The link in the description. So let's continue. It's done exporting. Right here you see our ODR created, being our interior. Inside we have our embedded textures right here, the textures that we have just used because we clicked embed in GIMS material editor. Now go back and we have all our files here, including the collision. Now go to your custom path created, being first MLO. You can also make sure it's under your favorite, so favorite, add to favorite, add. So now let's make your like a random destination, random place. Just go favorite, first MLO, and you're back in your hierarchy. And only when you are in correct hierarchies that we created in the first 5 minutes of the video, only here you drag and drop your files. All right. Now the last part here in Max is deleting our collision. So if you remember, we also took our collision in initial, being our OBN files of the exterior, and it's the fastest and easiest part of the video. They're super easy to import, export, and fast. Now once it's imported, you're like confused, oh my god, where is it? It's in the Scene Explorer, but not right here. It's because all the collisions are in the world coordinates, so it's right here. And now just make sure we find our building. I have just found it. It's located right here. So you just select it, make sure it's a box, press delete, you delete that. Actually, oh no, it's correct one. I just checked that. It's hard to navigate through here. Have troubles navigating. So yeah, this is the correct one. But this was the usual one. Now we have the one for bullets, and you delete this one as well. Make sure it's prim box. If you have like, if you make sure you delete boxes, because if you select something like a mesh and you press delete, you will have your hierarchy fucked. So if you select mesh, make sure you go to editable mesh and you delete and edit from here by selecting polygons. So we have just edited our collision, as I told you, very few clicks, super easy and fast. Few steps. You export that as well. So right here we deselect everything we do not want to be exported, being everything except our exterior collision. Make sure it's all mesh. We export it. It's done exporting. You just grab your collision, convert it to YBN, your open formats to YBN by just dropping it here. And now, kinda the last part of the video, I would say, the last big part of the video would be understanding that all interiors and models require meta files, because the first part of your interior would be the interior itself and the collision, but the second one would be metadata behind it. So let's say a table is a YDR, but the boundary box of it, the render of it, the general information of it is in other meta files. And in order to create those meta files or work with them, you're gonna have to go to my Discord channel under tools and links and download MLO templates right here. So once you have downloaded them, just open your MLO templates. We care about FiveM primarily. If you want a tutorial on how to stream to RageMP, just let me know. Then you grab custom ymap and custom ytyp. You drag and drop them somewhere, and then you drag and drop them into OpenIV. Now I assume you know what ymap and ytypes are, or you can watch Toby's tutorial in the description in case you just don't know. So basically ymap is all the props in outside world called Limbo, and ytype is everything about the interior plus prop information. Well, that's the basic explanation. So of course your interior must be spawned in the world. That's why we're gonna need ymap, and it must have its own information behind it. So everything about the interior must contain the interior itself, obviously, and this is why we're gonna need ytyp file for it. So I introduce you to the fast and easy way to work with those templates. You copy your interior's YDR name, you rename your ymap to your interior name, and your ytyp to your interior name. Then you open your ymap as edit, not open, but right click edit. Then under search, you search for custom, and under here, when it asks you custom MLO name, well, he asks you for your ymap name, but this one doesn't matter actually, but let's just paste what we have copied. Make sure you only it's under those boundaries, so you type it right here. So if you delete this one, your code would be fucked and it will not let you save the file. So custom collision file name. How did we call our collision? Well, it asks for our YBN, and our YBN called as our YDR but COL at the end, and it's completely normal to name it that way. Custom collision file name, again, COL. At first this process would seem weird to you, but trust me, it's with practice it becomes easier and better. Custom ymap name, well, we named everything as our interior, so we just replace it with our interior's name, which is of course being our ymap name as well. So as you see, because we have everything named the same, it's way easier for us to just Control-C, Control-V, and we don't have to type different names everywhere. So under your ytyp, you do the same. Go to custom, go to search, custom model file name. But this is ytr's name. What we have just copied, Control-V. Custom model file name, Control-V. Custom collision, Control-V, but COL at the end. Custom collision again. Oops. COL, and here it's COL as well, and I have deleted the sign, so I return it back. Now right here, if you had wanted to use YTD, you would announce it here under your text edition, like, you know, my YTD, and close it with, well, like so, texture dictionary. So this is what you would announce your YTD if you had one with all the textures, but our textures are embedded. So next custom would be custom model name, Control-V, first interior. Now it asks for your room name. It can be whatever. Let's say it's we would add another room. So let's call our first room hallway or entrance. And this name doesn't matter at all. You can call it with just numbers or whatever, but just paste it as well, and just hit save. Now, great. All of your files are done. All of your files for your interior, and they must be in the correct path in OpenIV, or it will not display in CodeWalker. Now close your CodeWalker and open it again for it to load all the files from the beginning. Now it will read your DLC with your interior inside. So you take all your files, like so, and drag and drop just somewhere. You will find them. Maybe in the streaming folder already, just somewhere you'll find. You open up your CodeWalker, hit T, Control N, copy your path to files, then go to File, Open Files, and you search for ymap and ytyp. There's no need to open collisions or YDR, your model in the scene, in the CodeWalker project. So we only open ymap and ytyp in our scene. Then you go hit like so, plus. If right here you have numbers, then you have made a mistake inside ytype file and you have to just redo that again. Then you hit go to, and you have your interior spawned right here at 0, 0, 0 coordinate, somewhere there. Then just hold Z button to zoom in. And now go to your move tool, your cursor, and just drag it up. And here we have our little interior. The ceiling might have been a little bigger, right? But it's all good for our first attempt. It's not bad, not bad. Now, let's say crucial part, the most important part, is how do you take this interior into the exact place where we had it in Max with super precise coordinates. And of course, this is where we will need our new text document where we saved all of our coordinates. So now you take all of those coordinates, Control-C, and just paste it into that position array with your interior selected, Control-V. Now you go to, hold Z. We're almost at the place, almost precise. Now the only problem is that our interior is rotated 178 degrees. So right here you make sure it's 0. Oh yeah, and CodeWalker has a bug. When you move it out like a little far, it just stops rendering. So make sure to hit calculate as extents. Now go to File, Save ymap as. Just replace the file, save. All right, okay. And then just reopen your project. Control N, File, Open Files, and you open your ymap and ytype again. And right here we have our interior in the exact place. What is that? It's some another model in our way. And right here we have our interior in the exact place. All good, all good. Now let's stream it into our FiveM server. Now I have a video on how to create your own custom FiveM and RageMP servers, link in the description. I'm not going to discuss that. I'm going to discuss how to stream it to your server. So create a new folder called, let's say, first MLO. Inside you create a folder called stream, because you stream your files, and your latest version of the files you just drag and drop them into your streaming folder. And outside of your streaming folder you create a file called fxmanifest.lua, and inside, this is what you have inside. Just type that in, or just copy and paste it from FiveM forum, or just ask in my Discord channel. If you don't type it, the resource will not be loaded in the server. So then you copy your MLO's name, like so, go to your server.cfg and just press ensure first MLO. Then you hit Ctrl S. Now you just go and launch your server right here. You launch your FiveM, and let's continue from the server. Now the one crucial thing that I of course forgot for some reason is you go to, with your ymap and ytyp in the scene, you go to tools, manifest generator, generate, and you have your manifest here. Now what manifest does is it basically spawns add-on props in game, but add-on prop being your interior. So for sure it grabs props for different DLCs, and our interior is basically its separate DLC. So you generate a manifest like so, just very few buttons, generate and save it into your streaming folder, which would be my first MLO stream, like so. Now you launch your server and we'll continue from there. Once we are at game, you may start panicking. Where is my interior? But it's actually inside. There is no collision here. We have worked on that, and we see our interior is here. And if you go to your first person, you see your interior. You don't see the outside world. And if you no clip inside, you see your interior. Yeah, now you don't see the outside world if you exit. So this is why we need to create a portal that leads from room 0, being the limbo outside world, to our interior. So let's establish our portals inside our CodeWalker ytyp. So in CodeWalker, for cursor, you go to interior instance mode, you select it, and now you see your portal, and for sure it's in the wrong place. So we have to make sure that our portal stays somewhere here, right at our entrance. But how do we change the portal's coordinates? So you go to ytyp, archetypes, your interior portals, and here you see your coordinates. Of course, it's basically just a rectangle with 4 points for vertices, each vertice having 3 coordinates, x, y, z, so 12 coordinates here, I would call it. And in order to change that, we of course go back to our series max. So as I told you, GTA coordinates are unit setup in this coordinates units setup generic units in the game. That's why these coordinates, with our interior being at 0, 0, 0, these coordinates are being our GTA coordinates. So this point, this vertex, would be the point of our first vertex of our portal. But one thing crucial to understand here is that, imagine this is your portal. We would have to count our vertices from here, bottom right, if you're looking outside of your interior. So this one being the first vertex, this one being the second one, the third one, and the fourth one. So let's copy the coordinates of this particular vertex because it's our entrance. Well, we can make this our entrance, it doesn't matter, just make sure it's where your floor begins or where your walls begin. Make sure it's where your entrance is. You select your x coordinate, you go back to your CodeWalker, and you swap your x coordinate with that, and you see it's dynamically changing right here. Same goes with y coordinate, and of course with z coordinate. And now we have our point right here. Now the second point would be this one. And the only difference between this and this vertex is z coordinate, because we only change the height. So we copy this, paste that, copy the first array, paste into the second array, and the only thing we do is we change the height. Great. The second point is established. Now the third point would be this. Now the third point would be right here. And let's say it's almost the same as this, but y coordinate is different. But at this time, let's just copy the coordinates. The first vertex being the easiest one. Now after we've done the third one, as I told you, the first is the easiest one, the fourth. Because you copy the third array, you paste it into the fourth array, because as I told you, of course, they are on the same x and y. The only difference here is z coordinate. But this z coordinate is the same as this z coordinate. So I just copy the z coordinate from the first vertex right here. So make sure your first vertex would be from bottom right. So if I change this coordinate to, let's say, -1, this one is moving, then it's correct, then our portal is correct. Also make sure it's from 1 to 0, and make sure you have established your RoomID for your collision, because this from 1 to 0, 1 is exactly what we have here under our RoomID, being this RoomID 1. So after you cross this portal, the game understands that I changed my room from limbo to 1, and it starts rendering the interior. So let's save our ytyp into our streaming folder again, and let's go to our server and see if our changes occurred. And as we move closer to our interior, we see that it's finally rendering. Now we change our room once we cross this portal right here, and everything is indeed rendering. We go first person, we see the outside world, we see everything inside. So the last part left is, if we go into first person, we see everything still. But the last part left is, let's say I want to separate my interior into several rooms, because if I'm here, I don't want every single prop behind that corner to be rendered for me all the time. And if I'm here, I don't want the prop at the hallway, at the entrance, to be rendered for me. So how do I do that? This is why we also need portals. So portals need for optimization purpose and for rendering purpose, like in this case. In this particular case, it's not that important, because we barely have any props here, any geometry. But let's say you have 5 rooms, 6 rooms, 16 rooms, like Rockstar has in its vanilla interiors. It's dozens and dozens of thousands of polygons being rendered all the time, every second, hundreds of props. And of course this affects your FPS, it's unprofessional, it's unoptimized. So let's quickly divide our interior into 2 rooms, create another portal, and establish boundary box of our interior and our rooms. Little quick, it will be quick, fast, and smooth. In order to create your second room, you go to your ytype, archetypes, and nowadays it's super easy and a lot easier than it was before. You go to rooms, select any room, let's say it's hallway, and go to ytyp, MLO, new room. And let's call it, I don't know, backdoor, whatever. And right here, the simple rule is that every room should have at least 1 prop in it. So the first hallway had this little door right here. It's not little at all, but the second room, let's just go to ytyp, MLO, new entity. And this will spawn an egg by default, and we will need that here. So now that every room has at least 1 prop in it, we have created another room. By the way, you can change time cycles right here for your room. So this is basically how light affects your objects in the game, kinda. They work in tandem, like vertex color, lights, and time cycles for your room. I usually keep it something like polystation, and if somewhere I want it darker, I'll make it polystation dark. It really is just a name. Time cycle really is just a name. Right here, just you change and it's all good. It's very subtle effect most of the times. So yeah, in terms of interior, we'll also have to create a portal, because as I told you earlier, we switch between rooms by going through the portal. So we have to add a portal right here. And this is exactly the same process. We go right here, and we take coordinates from bottom right. I want my portal to be right here, but I don't have any vertices to copy the coordinates from, so I just take them and I just move them to take my coordinates. Just take the closest wall, the closest vertex, just to take the coordinates. All right. It's not my final thing. I'm not gonna export that. I'm just taking my vertices from here, my coordinates. I'm not gonna export this interior. So make sure you just copy the coordinates anyway, comfortable for you, and you copy X coordinate. You go to portals, ytyp, MLO, new portal, and it's very same process I have shown you earlier. So as you see, dynamically we see our portal slowly appear in my viewport in CodeWalker, in my scene. And for me, making a portal nowadays takes like, I don't know, 40 seconds. First time I would say it was confusing for me when I was starting few years ago, but now really when you do it like hundreds of times, portals are really straightforward. Now we established our portals. This could be moved a little bit more to the right on our y coordinate, so we can kind of like make it, let's say 8. Too much, like make it 7. Nice, our portal is here, but it's not from room from 1 to 0 anymore. It's from 2 to 1. The same way it was from 1 to 0 here, even though we enter from outside world being limbo. You always have 3 rooms, limbo being 0, your own room being 1, and the second, another room being another room you created. So for 1 to 0 being the second portal, so from 2 to 1 being your another portal. So we have just established a portal and a room. The last thing left is our boundary box, because right here, if we select our interior, you see the boundary box is a lot bigger than our interior. And it's not actually bad, because it doesn't change much, but it's quite unprofessional. Especially for your, it will make difference for your rooms though. Let's change the boundary box for our room and for our interior. And how do we do that? It's actually super straightforward, because boundary box is actually a box. So you go to your series max, you go to your primitives, the first tab, and you basically just spawn a box. Spawn a simple box, go to modifier tab. You make sure you adjust it so it suits your needs. You can convert it to editable poly or editable mesh and make it more precise with snapping, or just, you know, moving it somewhere there. It's okay if you're not 100% precise here. Just make sure it's somewhere close, all right? So right here I see that my box fills the interior. And how does boundary box work? So for game, it takes 2 vertices like this, then it makes a straight line between them, and then it automatically creates a box right here. So it can be vertices like this or vertices like this. So what we care about is this kind of vertices opposing to each other. All right. This one being BB max, so maximum vertices is right here and minimum vertices are right here. So we go to our CodeWalker, and for our rooms we see BB min and BB max. And as I told you, BB min would be this one, this one, this one, this one. So let's take any vertice. Let's take this one, and opposing to that vertice would be that one. If you were to take that one, it would be this one. All right. So we take this vertice, take its coordinates, go to limbo. Limbo being the size of your interior. So that's why I took the whole. I create a box covering the whole interior. And this was BB min, so my BB max would obviously be this right here. This would be my limbo, so my whole interior. And now if you select your interior, you see your box covering your interior just fine. You have just fixed your boundary box. And now you just kind of have to do the same for the rooms. So you go to your hallway, and your hallway, it ends right here, right? It goes to here. Yeah, this would be another room. So our hallway would be the same boundary box as our limbo. Because in our case, our second room, our hallway, goes up to here, right? But you can't make this into a... You could try, but then you will not have this included. But boundary box should cover the whole area of your room. So it's okay if your boundary boxes are overlapping between each other. So let's say this was a limbo box, this was your hallway box, it's completely fine. Now let's make our third boundary box being our last room, backdoor room, which starts from here, right? So I'm using angle snaps to make it precise for me, well, somewhat precise. Just make sure it's bigger. And now it's the very same process. You take the small vertices, the minimum vertices, minimum, the lower vertices, go to backdoor, it's bb min, being this one. Now it's this one, and z coordinate right here. And for boundary box maximum, we worked with this vertice, so now we take this vertice coordinate. As I told you, they must be opposing vertices. And of course, this would be our maximum, bb max. Now, the one thing and problem that you will encounter is sometimes CodeWalker doesn't render the rooms correctly. So in this case, it works fine. But if for some reason for you it's different, it's fucked, just make sure all the values are correct. Sometimes CodeWalker renders your boundary box wrong. So now let's just save our ytyp into our streaming folder. We have spawned another prop, so every time you spawn a prop, make sure you generate the manifest, you save your manifest, save, done. Now we have established another portal, we created another room, and we created correct boundary box for all of our rooms. Now let's actually go to our game and see if everything works correctly, and I will show you how to make sure that everything works correctly. I think I forgot to show you how to actually add props to your interior. So let's say the first one being your door, right? You go to a website called Plebmasters, and let's say you want to search for some door. Well, you just type a door and search for the doors that you want, that you need. It goes like this, and you copy its name, and then you just go back to CodeWalker, and under archetype with your model selected, just Control V. Now you spawned your model. Now you can hold Shift with dragging your model, and it will just copy it. Now let's say I want like a plant, right? Like whatever, a trash bin, a plant, just enter a name here, copy a name, go back to CodeWalker, replace it right here. Another way to create a prop, let's say, I don't know, some bin, right? Whatever. You copy its name, you go back to CodeWalker, you select your room, so it must be correct room, or the props will not be rendered, because they spawn and despawn depending on which room you're on and which portals you cross. So ytype, MLO, new entity, egg by default, your trash bin. So after that, make sure to generate manifest. Then you just go to your second room, select your second prop, spawn as many eggs as you want, and this is how you basically spawn your props. Don't forget to generate your manifest, save your ytype, and now let's go into the game. Now once we're inside, we see all our objects rendering. Everything's working correctly. If they were to disappear, your portal is working incorrectly. If they were to shift or clip, then you spawn them incorrectly. If you go first person and you disappear, then they're in the wrong room, or if they're not here at all, you didn't create a manifest. Now if you go to your second room, you see all your props and it's working correctly. If they disappear, if they blink, the portal is looking in the wrong direction. You would have to flip the coordinates, because this should be the bottom right one, and you spawned it from this one. So make sure the top bottom right vertex being the first vertex. Now we cross a portal, and the props do not disappear. and I cross the portal again, and these props do not disappear. I go to limbo and everything works fine. Whew, so I think I will drop those files for my patrons in my Discord channel. Just this test and here for you guys. If you want to have a look at it for some reason. So this was really an exhausting video to record. I spent a lot of time making it. I hope it ended up being good. I hope that you understood the basics, or if you're an advanced mapper, you learned something new. Please share your thoughts right inside my Discord channel. I have a special English section where I help other 3D modelers, other mappers, enthusiasts, modders, whatever. Just come here, ask your questions. In the first week of July, I will be streaming on Twitch, so come say hi. Don't be shy. I will be speaking English. Sometimes I will be speaking Russian, answering Russian questions in the chat. Make sure to check our shop right here. We have sexy pets right here. Super quality work. Trust me, this one is my favorite. I'm not gonna lie. Make sure to support me if you want by using Zap Hosting with my promo code link in the description. Join my Discord channel, and yes, the next video is probably gonna be about Solums. People have been asking that a lot, but you can message inside tutorial ideas if you have something specific in mind. And please share your interiors under my preview section, because I really want to know if you learned something from what I've shown you, or if I'm just a straight bad teacher. Alright, this is the end of the video. See you on my stream, see you in the chat, see you in the next video. Join my Discord channel, ask your questions, stay tuned. I will be streaming a lot through the summer and through the next year, not just in July, but generally a lot. We'll be making a lot of cool stuff for the servers, for the shops, the stores. We will be modding a lot. So yeah, come say hi. Have a nice day and take care of yourself, guys.